Welcome, everybody, to episode 41 of the Serial Chillers podcast. I'm excited about this one. Today, I have some very special guests from another podcast, one of my favorite, the Conspiracy Therapy podcast. 3 of the 4 hosts from that. We missed you, Josh. We wish you could have been there. And unfortunately, today, we're also missing co-host Greg, but he was out balling. Ball is life, you guys. Ball is life. Today, we've got a heavy hitter. I brought Ted Bundy to the table. I hope you guys are excited as I am. So, as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Serial Chillers podcast. Welcome, everybody, to episode 41 of the Serial Chillers podcast. I am here with a whole gang of folks.
A motley crew.
Yes,
gang.
indeed.
That's right.
I've always wanted to be in gang.
Well, I'm from Central California. It's very common here, so you guys have to be in a gang, all right? There's only one way in or out.
We'll throw our signs up.
That's right. We got our gang colors on.
Larry, be careful when you roll around my hood in that blue.
Uh-oh. Should have cripped it up today, I guess.
So, obviously, you guys can hear we have some very special guests. It's been a long time coming. Co-host Greg and I had them on an old show, and we had a good old moon landing discussion that time.
That's true.
So welcome,
That was fun.
Ryan, Larry, and the Illuma Mommy herself, April. This is the Conspiracy Therapy podcast, collectively known as.
Yes.
It is.
We are super stoked to be on your show, sir. It's been a while. It has definitely been a while. Now you're on episode 41.
Right.
With covering serial killers, is this? Do you think you found your niche? Is this your?
It's definitely the one that seems like there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
It seems like there's maybe something to this.
Some DNA and blood and at the end of the tunnel.
Oh,
Oh.
it's the last place. You don't want DNA at the end of your tunnel.
Probably not.
Well, maybe you do, but not dirt.
Nothing
Okay.
kills a party like a bloody tunnel.
So, because I will assuredly forget anytime other than this, tell them where they can find you guys.
Oh yeah. Our show is on Spotify now. Also, you can find us on any Apple, like Android device. Our show, Conspiracy Therapy, we cover cryptids, conspiracies, everything. We just did OJ. Some of people's favorite episodes are like human combustion. If you want to know when we drop episodes, at Conspiracy T Show, and then we have a pretty active Facebook too. So we do a monthly vote for episodes we're going to cover in the future. So if anybody wants to hit us up, we're totally active on all social media fronts.
Yes. All right. I would have for sure forgot that. So thank you for.
No,
getting it.
it's all good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
70% of the time, Ryan forgets it, so don't worry.
That's true.
Yeah. So I'm glad
Alright,
he had it on lock just then. That was beautiful. So I know that you guys know a little bit about the show, but for anybody who doesn't, this is how it goes. Each week I sit down with old friends, new friends, good friends, and bad friends to tell the story of an infamous serial killer. Throughout the show, you guys will chime in on my story, and if you guys have any, we can tell some true crime, dark, creepy, or unsolved, or otherwise mysterious mysteries yourself. Lastly, if you have questions about questions, make sure to ask questions, because I cannot answer questions about questions if you never ask questions. Do we have any questions?
That.
Yep.
I had
Nice.
an aneurysm trying to figure that one out.
Yes, that's the idea. So then welcome to and let's play the Serial Chillers podcast.
Ooh,
Yes.
I like
Nice.
that. Nice and quick.
Thank you. So, you guys, I only gave Ryan a small hint in telling him that I brought you a heavy hitter. Today's serial killer is Theodore Robert Bundy,
Yes.
otherwise known
yes.
as
All
Ted
right.
Bundy.
This is I am honored because we're going with the handsomest man in all killings.
Yes. So I truly did save this for you guys. It has been on the shelf. I specifically wanted to bring it for you guys, and I'm excited that you guys were excited. So
Oh, dude. This is the Republican
Mhm.
pretty boy of all murders.
And
To
that's
be interesting.
that's just the thing about about this story.
Skilf.
Is that we kind of I have to sort of pick and choose what we're going to cover, because Ted Bundy would be a 7-hour episode if you truly went over it all.
Yeah.
True.
I kind of just went with all of his admitted killings and not a whole bunch of his political life and working at a suicide hotline. And
She did write a book about that experience.
Yeah.
I think it's Anne Rule, or I'm not sure.
Yes.
There was the lady that worked with him there.
The Stranger
He used to
Beside
actually
Me.
walk her out to her car and make sure that it was locked, just to make sure she was safe, because she didn't want any psychos getting in the
What
car.
a gentleman.
He was
what a
He was
gentleman.
a gentleman, I guess, to his friends.
You see, nice guy.
Right.
Right.
Very nice guy. So since we're all over the internet, I'm not going to have you guys write down answers. You guys are just going to have to spit them out there when you've got them. Because
Okay.
question number 1, in what year is Ted born? The closest to the answer is going to get 250 points.
Ooh.
What year is Ted Bundy born?
1952.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no to that. I'm gonna go with 1947.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Oh boy. 19. What did you say, Larry?
52.
1955.
Ryan gets it. It is 1946.
Oh,
Very
okay.
close. Almost some bonus points in that for
Well, you have
you.
the baby face. So
Yes.
In our
Yeah.
fairness.
Yes, that is
Well,
true.
I'm thinking mid 70s. He's, I think, about on trial at that point, and I know when he hit Florida and did the campus killings. I think that was right in his 30s,
Mhm.
if I remember correctly. But yeah,
Peak, as it were. Peak.
that was a berserker stage, by the way.
Yes, indeed. It was very violent and very
With a log.
and it was like 5 in an evening. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
on November 24th, 1946, young Theodore is born. He is born at the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Burlington, Vermont, to Eleanor Louise Cowell. He is actually born Theodore Cowell. Sorry, Eleanor's father was also Ted's father. So there's some talk about some type of incest. And I only put that in there because I read it in a few different spots. But I also read mostly that it was just a sailor who, when he found out she was pregnant, took off. I was interested in
I
the...
think that it was this misconception in that maybe he was raised by his grandfather.
I see.
Something weird like that. Like he didn't know who his real dad was, but then there was speculation that maybe there was some incest.
And I think that's where a lot of his anger comes from, in that illegitimacy.
I don't know who my dad is. Step, 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 step.
So, in 1949, at the age of 3, he was caught standing beside his aunt's bed, grinning after he had placed kitchen knives all around her as she slept.
Dang.
I love that story too. I think it just shows his young charm at the age of 3.
So charming.
Also, I have a 3-year-old, and it kind of scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the night. So in 1950, he's now 4. Eleanor and Ted moved to Tacoma, Washington, and he changes his name from Cowell to Bundy at this point. She marries Johnny Bundy, and her son, takes the stepfather's name. In the 50s, between the ages of 5 and 14, there was no evidence that Johnny ever abused Ted, but the two were not close. Ted felt uncomfortable around him as he made attempts to bond with him. So he never really melded with his stepdad. There's not really any evidence that anything funky happened from what I can understand, but they never got along and never had a father-son relationship.
Right.
Oh, well, you need that father figure, you know?
Cats in the cradle and the silver spoon.
In 1959, at the age of 13, Ted is finally told by his parents that he is an illegitimate child. They thought that this was going to sort of relieve some of the pressure and the tension so that he would understand, but it only made, a murderer out of him.
Angry.
Oopsie.
Yes, exactly.
That's the age too. I mean, I don't know about all men, but I know when I was 13, I was just like, Nirvana, I'm angry.
Fuck you, Dad. Fuck you.
I don't understand the 10 I have going every morning. It's confusing. There's blood down below. What am I supposed to do with this?
Every time Greg and I
Blood
try
down
to
below. I don't think you're doing it right.
Yeah. Blood in the tunnel again.
You're probably right.
That's awesome. Okay, so he's not happy about it. In spring of 1965, he's now 18 years old. See, this is how we always know that there's a fairly normal childhood, is that I don't really have too much about Ted's childhood. He lived
Doesn't he fall into, you might know this offhand, but the trifecta of head trauma.
the McDonald
wetting the
triad,
bed.
I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Yes.
He wet the bed, and he also,
The head injury, and was it arson? Would it be arson?
yeah, something like
Yes. Ted has some destructive ways very soon. So in spring of 65, he graduates Woodrow Wilson High School in Tacoma, Washington.
the most famous president.
Question number 2.
Like there was a draft at high schools. They're like, I guess we'll take Woodrow.
They had the last poll in the lottery.
Yeah.
Question number 2.
Garfield, we'll take Woodrow Wilson.
Garfield rules. Mondays suck.
Perfect for a school then.
Yeah, true.
What hobby did Ted take up after high school? This one here is multiple choice. Was it painting, cars, stealing, or photography?
I'm gonna go with cars.
I'm going to say, if I know Ted, probably photography.
I was gonna say photography too. Can I choose the same one?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna do photography.
But
since,
hold
like,
on.
macrame isn't an answer.
My second answer would definitely be stealing, though.
Okay, I like the backup answer.
You don't get multiple
I know.
choices.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Bad.
choose A, B, C, and D.
Can I take all of them?
Ryan should have gone with his backup answer because the answer is indeed C, stealing. Sorry, everybody.
Of course, it was the one that was the crime.
When I wrote that question, I was thinking, oh shit, that one's way too obvious.
Oh, no.
I thought you threw that in there to throw us off.
Yeah.
Well, Ted
worked.
Ted is pretty textbook, as
I
it turns
think
out.
ETK's thing was photography, not necessarily Ted Bundy. But
And we just finished with Harvey Glattman. He was like a photographer from the 50s who was supposedly the first serial killer to photograph his victims.
Hmm.
Fun fact, huh?
good for him.
Yes, indeed. This is
Fortunately,
trailblazing.
He couldn't get any likes.
So upon his graduation, he admittedly began stealing regularly. In spring of 65, he enrolls in the University of Puget Sound and attends the school until the fall of 1968. In June 23rd of 1965, he murders Lonnie Trumbull and seriously injures roommate Lisa Wick in their Seattle apartment. They were airline attendants and lived together with a third roommate who was not there that night. They were discovered the morning after the attack by one of their boyfriends and the third roommate. It is said that Lisa only survived because she had gone to bed with soft rollers in her hair. So he came in and did his Ted Bundy bludgeon deal.
Oh, okay.
And one of them survived because she wanted to have curly hair the next day.
Note to self, wear curlers to bed.
Always.
God, you'd look good.
I would.
All right, throw those in there.
So
and in your beard.
Ooh, yeah, do it in the beard. The questions are going to come in bunches here, I noticed. So question number 3,
I like this.
those are his first attacks. How many will Ted kill when it's all said and done? And before I let you answer this, I would like to tell you that I took the average from 6 different websites and took that number. Everybody has a different
definitely
answer.
Fluctuates.
Yeah.
They think that it was definitely more than what he confessed to, because his confession jumps up and down. I think his last confession, he was like, it was porn that made me do it, but I didn't actually do it, or something. He was a shithead. This guy is such an asshole, by the way.
In
You
its
watch
purest form.
Any interviews with him, he just comes across as like almost like a pathological liar who is he's a politician.
It's almost
He's a
as if he
good-looking
has no
politician.
feelings or empathy.
Yeah, he's got no feelings. All right, sorry. I
No,
digress.
don't be sorry at all. We're going to take an average over 6 websites answers.
I appreciate that you did that, though. That's cool. Wait, you want to take a stab first?
Stab.
Is that a Bundy pun?
Yeah, I guess.
A pundy.
A pundy.
Patent pending.
I'm going to guess 68.
Wow.
I don't know.
Damn.
I'll go with 47.
I'm gonna say with Bundy, 22.
Ryan's going to score again.
Good
because the
Lord.
average was
No,
30.
you're serial
Yeah,
killers,
no
right?
kidding.
30. Some reports do range very high. I believe I saw one at 45 or so. I saw it as low as 14. Between 30 and 36 seem to be where a lot of them landed.
Yeah, when I think of like guys that have high numbers, I definitely don't think of Bundy, but at the same time, he definitely racked up a lot over his time.
Yeah. And if you include the attacks where women were just sexually assaulted and bludgeoned but not killed, I think the
it'd be
number
more like
is somewhere
Aprils.
into the 50s or 60s.
Wow.
Yeah. So in fall of 1966 to spring of 1969, he attends the University of Washington. And 1967 to 1968, he courts Stephanie Brooks, who closely resembles a lot of his future victims, brunette with parts down the middle.
A lot of what I read with this guy I've been a serial killer fanatic for a long time. This guy really had something about her.
Yeah.
There's a trigger in her, I think, because you mentioned his first kill, but I think this is where it's like, all right, game on. I know who I'm going to be.
Exactly.
Michael Jordan of serial killers, basically.
I found my passion.
Yes, and
Right.
and he thought initially that it was stealing, but now it's murder.
No, it's definitely.
So only about a year and a half later, she's going to break off the relationship with Bundy. And just like Ryan said, he was very, very broken up over this.
Yeah, she actually, funny enough, she kind of influenced his perspective too, because she was from like a pretty wealthy family, and then Ted's just kind of like he's a run-of-the-mill, good-looking, handsome guy, rugged, good looks, and she's just
Like I said,
gorgeous,
he's a
long-
skilf.
Yeah. I got it. Yeah, no, Bundy was definitely influenced by this. So because he wanted to be accepted, he thought he was like a really good guy. And in fact, in a lot of his interviews, he's just like, I came from good upbringing and my parents, I was by all accounts a good kid. And then this girl comes and rejects him. And it's just like, I don't get rejected. Becomes like a wrestler, basically.
Well, it's true.
Rejection takes a lot of practice.
It does.
I know.
Aww. Well, and too, just to think that, he breaks up with this girl and he loses, the love of his life, and some heavy percentage of his kills all resemble this girl in some way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, in early of 1969, he's kind of rediscovering himself. He wants to go back home and find out, like, he wants to go where he's from. He's just been left by Stephanie Brooks. He's broken. He's rebuilding himself from the ground up. So he goes to Burlington, Vermont, and he goes to the home in which he was born, which is still operating, and finds out for certain that he is illegitimate. Now, I'm not sure why he went in trying to discover this, or maybe it was just a fact-checking mission.
Right.
But it did not make it any easier than hearing it from his parents. So later in fall of 1969, he re-enters the University of Washington and meets Liz Clofer, his girlfriend throughout most, if not all, of the murders. In spring of 1973, he graduates from the University of Washington. While dating Liz Clover, he begins to court Stephanie once more because she shows a great interest in him. So Stephanie's like, whoa, he graduated. He's kind of making something of himself. I believe at this point, he's also applied to law school.
Yep.
So he kind of behind Liz's back starts to really court her and bring her in again. And she's falling in love and he proposes to her. And she's so excited. Finally, Ted's got it together. I can be with the man I love. And then he's like, fuck you. What do you think of that?
He bails on her
Yeah.
hardcore. It's funny, but it makes a lot of sense if you think about it in the juxtaposition of his story. It was all about owning and winning, even with his victims. Like he'd take them out to the cabin and he'd just mess with them like he wanted. He'd paint their faces like he wanted. He'd have his way with them like he wanted. Once she came back into his life, he's just like, yeah, I own you, basically. And then he bails, and actually he disappears from her life completely after getting engaged. She finally gets a hold of him and is like, Ted, what the fuck? And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Stephanie, and hangs up. Because he knew he had it.
Right.
And that's all he cared about.
Wow.
And that's actually what I have here. It said he got the final jab and therefore won.
Pretty much.
He won.
In his mind.
Won. Yeah.
Yeah. So November 25th, 1973.
Actually, she won.
Yeah,
dodged
she
the bullet.
definitely
She
won.
did.
Yeah, actually, she did.
Good for her. November 25th, 1973, he abducts Kathy Devine from a Seattle street corner. Some of these I'm going to kind of blow through. I don't know how big of a fan you are of the show, but the graphic details are not really my jam. So
No, I get you,
yeah.
dude. We did the same thing
Yeah.
when we did the O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, oh man, that was
episode.
very
Like,
graphic.
I don't really want to talk about this crime scene, but Larry added some flavor to that. So.
I'm only about 10 minutes into the episode. I can't wait to hear Larry's flavor.
You'll know.
So, about 10 days later, Devine's body is found near Olympia, Washington. On January 5th, 1974, he attacks Joni Lenz in her Seattle apartment. He violently beat her with a piece of bed frame until she was unconscious. After she was out, he then violently sexually assaulted her, leaving her with internal injuries, but she survived, but was obviously never
tunnel.
the same again. Yes.
Recurring theme. isn't
Very
it?
apt for this killer, Larry.
He's definitely now. I imagine you've doing all this research. What would you categorize Ted as, a product killer, or just like do you see him as like it's more about the act or more about the product? Or
I think for me, the amount of women that he just kind of bludgeoned and left behind.
because you said bed frame, to me that's like improv. Like he's just like,
Yeah.
I
think
see
you're
some loose
exactly
bed
right.
frame. I'm just gonna smack her with it.
And scene. Give me a woman, an object, and a way to kill her.
Yes, and yeah.
Oh, cool, a hammer.
And I think you're exactly right. I think that he was a fan of strangulation and maybe went in there with that idea. But then I imagined that some kind of fight was put up and the bed frame kind of falls apart as he shifts it over and he uses a piece that came apart to just finish up.
Yeah.
It seemed, I don't know. I liked the idea of it just being improv, though.
Yeah, no, I don't think he comes. I mean, he talks. He's the killer with the famous quote, and you're probably going to bring that up actually now that I think about it. So I don't want to. He's got a famous quote, and if you don't, I'll bring it up later. But yeah,
I would love to
definitely
hear it because I probably did not quote him on it.
Well, okay. So supposedly he's the killer that has the quote where like the first time around you're super prepared, like you've got everything, and then like somewhere around 8 or 9, 10 kills, and you're like, where did I put the socket wrench or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's the tire iron. Where did I put the tire iron?
So it's like podcasting.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
We fly by the seat of our pants
Oh,
all
yeah.
the time.
And honestly, I had completely forgot about that quote until you started saying it. But yeah, I have heard that, and it was his passion, like you said. It became automatic to him.
Mm-hmm.
So about a month later, February 1st, 1974, he abducts Linda Ann Healy. She was a ski forecaster and biked just a few short blocks from her home to do the job at 5:30 a.m. most mornings. Her roommates awoke the following morning to the last time she left to do it. So this is the last day that everybody saw her. There was no real alarm for her going missing initially, but the next day they woke up and her alarm had been going off for an additional 30 minutes than when she would have left. So it's 6:10, 6:15, and she's normally gone by now, and her alarm's still going off in the room. So they go into her room and see a very neatly made bed, and they think not too much of it and think that they'll see her at the end of the day. And at the end of that day, her parents were to arrive and have a dinner that she was going to make. So when her parents got there, she's not there. Real suspicion has arisen. They go into the bedroom and they see the same thing, a very neatly made bed. So they call the police, and the police go into this bedroom and pull back the very tightly made bed. And under the blanket are blood-soaked sheets and pillowcases. So they look around the room a little more and they find a nightgown in the closet, which is also crusted around the neck with blood.
Ugh.
About a year
Still
later,
better than your parents catching you masturbating, though.
Right.
I don't mind that they saw the blood, but man, if I'd been fapping off, that would have sucked.
Find my dead body. That's fine, but
about a
As long as I
year,
got my
Yeah.
underwear
Yeah.
on.
About a year later, during the search of Bundy's graveyard, her skull was discovered.
Oh wow.
March 12th, 1974, he abducts Donna Manson from the campus of Evergreen College. Question number 5. Donna Manson played an instrument, they said, expertly. What instrument was it? Was it A, the trumpet, B, the cornet, C, the flute, or D, the tuba?
Does anybody expertly play the tuba? I can't think of anybody.
Polish people.
Can I get some
It's the bass
bratwurst?
line of polka music. It's the tuba.
Can I get some bratwurst hunks up in here?
Hey there, can you drop the bass there, Mike?
Oh, I can really feel that bass.
Oh yeah, he dropped a bass. All right. I'm gonna go with skin flute.
Okay.
Flute.
I'm gonna say trumpet.
What was the other one?
Cornet.
Or, of course, tuba.
Fuck it. Why not? I'm gonna go with tuba.
Larry's going to get on the board for the first time because Donna Manson was an expert flautist.
Nice.
Yes, I was just Googled how to pronounce that correctly. Don't worry, guys.
Flautist. Not to be confused with pianist.
So Ryan's at 500. April, yet to hit the board. Larry, 250 points. We've got 9 questions today, guys. Don't worry.
Wow.
Plenty of time. Plenty of time. Yes. I like that you guys have a slightly longer format show, too, because sometimes I bring on guests that do shows that are like 25 minutes an episode, and we sit here for an hour and a half and talk about serial killers. So you guys are at least used to the marathons in
Looking
ways.
at their watch. Tomorrow.
So Donna Manson, again, was an expert flautist. She is also said to have had a high IQ, but she often struggled in school. Despite that high IQ, she was known to smoke marijuana daily. I love that they added that in there. Of course, that was the problem with her.
Smoke weed every day.
But she would come back. She would disappear at times and come back with crazy stories of hitchhiking to the next city or sometimes state over. She stayed out late often and asked her roommate to cover for her in class while she slept in. In March of 74, she was very depressed. She wasn't reported missing for 6 days because of her habit of taking off on whims. On March 12th, she left her room around 7 p.m. to walk to a campus jazz concert, and she was never seen alive again. Bundy confessed to her murder before his execution and identified the location of her remains. There was a lot of...
He was just like, by the way, mean flute player.
Yeah.
Flout like no one else.
Well, what's funny is there are a lot of the murders that he admits to that he does like say, well, you know, she was a really sweet girl and, you know, I got to know her. And it is like Ryan said earlier, he's just so fucking pretentious. Every word that comes out of his mouth, you're like, oh, slap the shit out of you, you piece of...
You want to punch him.
Yeah. Yep. So she fell victim to Bundy. April 17th, 1974, he abducts Susan Rancourt from the Central Washington State campus. She was actually a blonde, so this was very different for Bundy. She was a 4.0 student and a very hard worker. She was said to have worked 7 days a week in order to pay her tuition throughout her freshman year. Her friend said she never went out at night until one night she heard of a job opening as an RA. So she goes to the meeting, which was at 8 p.m., and the last time she was ever seen was leaving that meeting. Her remains were also found in Bundy's graveyard. Yeah, a lot of these seem very... I know he kind of chose his victims a little bit at random. He just kind of went out and stalked the sometimes night, sometimes day. But he caught a lot of people who were like, oh, I'm a free spirit, and I sort of just go out and disappear for weeks at a time. So when I do, my friends, they're not going to report me missing.
Yeah, or I smoke weed through this flute. I'm a crazy spirit.
You've just given me a great idea, sir. We're going to mix it up this weekend.
Well, that last one is really upsetting, though, because it's just like, she's a homebody, and then she's like, well, I'm just going to go out here. And meanwhile, fucking Ted Predator Bundy.
Right.
She probably already had the anxiety of like leaving home as it was, and then this asshole makes it come true.
Yeah, and I definitely understated how much she, like, it said that she was afraid of the dark. She didn't like going out when it was nighttime. It was not her thing, but she needed money, and she thought becoming an RA would keep her close to school while also getting to earn some money. So she was really excited about the opportunity, and it was the last time. So.
Rest in peace.
Right. May 6th, 1974, he abducts Kathleen Parks from the campus at Oregon State. Kathleen was a tall, slender girl with long, blonde hair and was majoring in world religions. She was homesick for her family in California and had just broken up with her boyfriend. He also finds quite a few of them that are down on their luck at the time. May 4th, she'd had an argument with her father on the phone, and her sister called from Spokane on May 6th to tell her that her father had suffered a massive heart attack. So she's feeling very guilty, like she caused this heart attack that her dad had because of this huge argument they have on the phone.
No, it was the cheeseburgers.
Yeah. The sister later calls and says that the father would recover and be okay. And it had speculated that Kathy was, again, feeling very terrible guilt over the argument. That night, she agreed to walk to another dorm hall to have coffee with friends, but she never arrived. Her skull was excavated from the others on Taylor Mountain or Bundy's graveyard, so far away from her Oregon dorm. Bundy confessed to her murder before his execution.
Just sitting outside of campus, like, hangouts, just like...
It's like a creepy Matthew McConaughey and...
all right.
Movie?
Dazed and Confused. Yeah.
I bet his car smelled like pennies.
Yeah, probably. Or his
All that
finger
blood.
did.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the guy that's like, smell my finger. It's
oh my God.
But he's like, here you go. Smells like a copper mine.
Car has that new blood smell.
So June 1st of 1974, he abducts Brenda Ball from Burien, Washington. On the night of May 31st, crossing over into June 1st, she had gone to the Flame Tavern alone. She told friends that day she would see about getting a ride to Sun Lakes on the eastern side of the state to meet them there later. She stayed at the tavern until 2 a.m., then asked a musician who had played that night for a ride, but he was going the other way. She was last seen in the parking lot talking to a man with his arm in a cast and sling. Because she was such a free spirit, her friends thought nothing of her absence and didn't become suspicious until almost 19 days after she was last seen.
And I definitely want to say something because I assume you have probably a good amount of female listeners. With this guy specifically, he used people's automatic trust.
Right.
Like he's the guy that the Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, like trying to load the couch into the back of the van, and he's just like, "Can I just get a little help?" Like he preys on people's automatic weakness to just want to help.
He could have killed me. Easily,
oh yeah,
because I'm that guy.
Yeah,
I'm the helper.
I've fallen victim to many people who are just like, hey, and then it ends up being like, let's be friends, and then I'm like,
but I don't wanna.
See, Larry, that's why you can never get a pickup truck. It's because you're always going to be the guy when people are moving.
I know.
Larry,
Come
There'll be
on.
pizza.
yeah,
And then I'm
get
like,
your
all right.
beer.
And then they're like, "Can you pay for half of that pizza? We're a
Oh.
little down on funds."
Yep.
Like,
What?
I didn't come here to
Yeah.
buy pizza so I can help you move your shit.
But on the other hand, I want pizza.
So yes, I will Dutch this pizza with you. March 1st of 1975, college students working on Taylor Mountain discovered the first of several skulls on the mountain that proved to be that of Brenda Ball. Bundy again confessed to her murder before his execution.
This guy is such a fuck.
Yes, we're like not even halfway done. He abducts Georgianne Hawkins from the alley near the University of Washington fraternity house. She was helping him carry something because he was again using the fake cast. He knocked her out, then strangled her. He confirmed the location of her remains and admitted to the murder before his death. So right before he died, Ryan probably knows this too. I think he was only convicted of 3.
Yeah.
But
Really?
yeah, so
He was his own lawyer, actually, during
Right.
his trial.
Of course he was.
he's
He's got the biggest ego of anybody you can imagine.
he went to law school for a little, Larry. Of course he can
Oh,
handle his own
The
capital.
5-tool player. He can kill. He can rape. He can beat. He can lawyer.
He can litigate.
Can't flout though.
Cannot
No.
flout.
Not like that one.
So, where'd I go here? Okay, so June 11th, he abducts Georgianne Hawkins. Already did that. So, June 17th, 1974, Brenda Baker's body is found in Millersvania State Park. It is not known when she is abducted. In July 14th, in separate incidents, Janice Ott and Denise Naslin are abducted from Lake Sam State Park. So this one, if you remember, this is broad daylight.
Yeah.
And he's going around on the beach and he's asking like, "Hey, I got this cast and I'm just trying to get my boat off the trailer and just, I just need a hand." And he's only targeting women to ask this question. And of course, unfortunately for Janice Ott and Denise Naslin, they both agree and are both killed. September 2nd, 1974, a Jane Doe is abducted from Boise, Idaho. I threw this in only because it is one that they believe is connected to Bundy that he did not admit to, because the Jane Doe was underage.
He probably forgot, honestly.
Well, and he didn't particularly enjoy talking about his...
Oh, yeah.
He murdered some girls that were as young as, I believe, 12.
What the?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he
Well,
did not like talking about his underage murders at all.
I don't think he had yeah, he had kind of an idea of, with the long hair, but I think part of it was that he was so angry. It never got quenched. I don't think he saw them as anything other than just like a moment for him to like rage against the machine or whatever. That's a great band name.
Yeah.
It is. That should be a band name for sure.
He's one of the, a lot of them are angry, but there was something set him off.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was just because he fell in love and she denied him, or if the parents were the thing, but his murders are vicious as fuck.
Yes.
Like cuckoo
Yeah.
for coconuts.
So about 2 months after the abduction of Ott and Naslin, body parts of both of them are found and recovered 2 miles from Lake Sam State Park. He used the fake cast to lure both of them to their death. So on October 2nd of 74, he abducts Nancy Wilcox. Nancy Wilcox disappeared from Holiday near Salt Lake City, Utah. She was last seen riding in a VW bug similar to Ted Bundy's and was likely Bundy's first victim in Utah. Ted Bundy, I believe he killed in 5 states as well, is something that we... something that we don't really talk about a lot. So he told detectives before he died that he left her body along with that of Debbie Kent in a secluded area south of Salt Lake City. Her body has never been recovered. That's another thing too. There's a lot that he's admitted to that I want to say there's 8 or 10 bodies that have never been recovered.
Yeah. Well, You kind of hinted at it, but all his interview footage where he talks about victims, he gets super quiet
Right.
because he doesn't like confessing to. He doesn't like being the monster that he really is. So as soon as he starts talking about, it's like, Danny, and then put the handcuffs on.
It definitely adds to the extra creepy factor of it too,
Yeah.
because he's a very actually well-spoken guy until he
Right.
starts doing these, and it's very like the mic goes up and the room sounds empty, and it is just him truly whispering.
Yeah, and it's funny because I would still give him more props for admitting it than say like a John Wayne Gacy who's just like, nah, I didn't do it.
There's
and
just
I don't wanna
18
be categorized
boys
like
in
you."
my basement. What's the deal?
Yeah, if anything, I'm just guilty of having an unlicensed cemetery in my basement. True quote, actually. He did
Wow.
say that.
Yeah.
Lovely.
What about the ones down in the river, John Wayne?
Better bury it in my basement.
Oh my gosh. So on October 18th, 1974, Ted abducts Melissa Smith from Midvale, Utah. Melissa was the daughter of Midvale's police chief. On October 18th, Melissa had plans to attend a slumber party. She ended up walking to the local pizza parlor to console a friend who had had a quarrel with her boyfriend. So this young lady was going to console her friend who was heartbroken at the moment. After the pizza place visit, she left to pick up her overnight clothes and go to the party. She never made it home or made it to the party. She was found 9 days later. Her head had been severely beaten with perhaps a crowbar or tire iron, and her body had been battered before death. She had been strangled, raped, and sodomized.
Oh, blood in the tunnel.
And Bundy did indeed confess to this murder before his execution. Halloween 1974, All Hallows Eve, he abducts Laura Amy from Lehi, Utah. She talked to her parents daily, but wasn't missed until 4 days after Halloween. She had gone to a cafe on Halloween night and, bored with the activity there, left around midnight and headed to a park. Why at midnight? She was found a month later on the bank of a river of the Wasatch Mountains. Her face was beaten beyond recognition, and she was found nude. She had been
It's always
strangled
the
and
face.
apparent. What's that?
I was saying it's always the face. He just beats the fuck out of
He,
it.
he
worst
sees
way to
Stephanie.
go.
I
Yeah.
think he just sees Stephanie every time.
Yeah. I think so too. I think he just sees his girlfriend. You want to break up with me?
Stephanie!
They made penguin noises.
And this is actually the time where he's still with Liz Clofer. And when he gets to Utah and she knows that he's in Utah, Liz Clofer actually reaches out to the police in Utah and says, like, I think this might be this guy, Ted Bundy. I'm dating him.
Wow.
I was about to say, does she have like cotton swabs in her ears and like
Yeah,
blindfold on?
she is-
just, like,
she is,
walking
well,
backwards all day.
For
I
the
think
Go ahead.
You're you don't want to believe that you're into somebody like that because that's a character flaw in yourself.
Yeah.
And she had some suspicions when they were just Oregon and Washington killings, but then Ted's in Utah, and right around the time he arrives in Utah, young women start disappearing there as well. And Liz Clofer is made aware of this.
I really like. I didn't know about this girlfriend. Like, I've actually researched this. I've listened to, documentaries or watched documentaries about Ted, but this girlfriend really adds a layer of something interesting. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's a really adds something to the fact that he was still doing it, and he probably came back and just smooshed her on the mouth and was like, whatever.
Yeah.
Watch some fucking Laverne and Shirley and go to bed.
I think that's exactly it. And she always had her suspicions.
Oh, that's squiggy.
But most spouses or parents or brothers and sisters of serial killers, like you said, you wouldn't believe that. Why would you want to believe that of somebody that you thought you knew and thought you loved for so long? So October 8th, just about a week later, he botches the abduction of Carol DeRanch. Carol DeRanch was at a mall, and Bundy approached her and said, what's your license plate number? And she told him, and he said, your car's been broken into. You got to come with me. You got to make sure everything's okay. Like, just come on, let's go check it out. So she goes to the car and realizes that nothing's been taken, But he's like, well, you know what? Let's go into the substation over here and see if you recognize the suspect we apprehended. So he kind of takes her into this weird dark alley of the mall, and the substation's locked, and she gets in his car to go to a different substation. And while they're in the car, she smells booze on his breath and starts to realize maybe this is not a security guard or police officer like I thought. Additionally, he is heading the opposite direction of the police station. So it's not very very good. But so she jumps out of the car when they pull over to a stop, and she's able to run away. There's a wrestling match between them, and Ted accidentally puts the handcuffs both on the same wrist. So he goes to handcuff her and gets them both on, I believe it's her right wrist.
Like, what the?
Yeah, and so she for that reason was able to escape because he wasn't able to get control of her. So
good on you, Carol.
She's able to get away and get to the police.
I'm super. It's nice to know that he had a few victims that actually got away.
Right,
That's
and
an interesting story too.
And
that it's like one of those things I could see happening to friends of mine.
Yeah,
who are good people who would trust, and it's like, okay, me, that would happen to me.
Yeah. And Carol Durant, realistically, I believe, is the linchpin in it all. It's the beginning of the end that she gets away there. This is the beginning of the downfall of Bundy. However, Bundy wasn't happy with this botched job. Later that day, he abducts Debbie Kent from a school in Bountiful, Utah. She was seeing a play with her family and was supposed to pick up her brother after the play. A witness recalls seeing a Volkswagen Beetle fleeing the scene and possibly seeing Debbie Kent inside the Volkswagen Beetle. Additionally, a small handcuff key that fit the handcuffs that Durant had brought into the police was found in the parking lot Debbie Kent was abducted in. So, very small clue, but very possibly leading to it being Ted Bundy. January 12th, he abducts Karen Campbell from a hotel in Aspen, Colorado. She was on a trip with her family, and they were all checking out, and she remembered that she had a magazine up in the room. They were on the second floor. So they're down in the lobby. She goes up to get the magazine in her room. She's never seen again. Her husband and kids are waiting down in the lobby for her, and when she doesn't pop up, they have to obviously go get on the plane and go home without her. And it said that her husband waited for the call of why she left because he assumed that she just decided to leave the family. And he waited for that call, and it never came. On February 18th, she was found in a snowbank off of Owl Creek Road, not far from the inn where she had been vacationing. She lay in a bloodstained snowbank nude, battered and cut. It was highly likely that she was raped, and Bundy confessed to her murder before his execution.
Asshole.
Right. It's nonstop asshole. March 3rd, 1975. The skulls of Healy, Ball, Park, and Rancourt are found near Taylor Mountain in Washington. March 15th of 1975, Ted abducts Julie Cunningham from Vail, Colorado. She talked to her mother this day for the last time on the phone, then decided she needed a break and left for the local tavern, because that's where you go when you need a break. She would have met her roommate there, but Julie Cunningham never arrived to the tavern. Not a lot of details about this one, but Bundy did confess to her murder before his execution. April 6th, 1975, he abducts Melanie Cooley from her school in Nederland, Colorado. Melanie could have been Debbie Kent's twin sister. You should see these pictures. It's very weird. He had walked off from her small-town high school that spring day, never to be seen again alive. County road workers found her body 20 miles away. She had been bludgeoned on the back of the head. Her hands had been tied with a dirty pillowcase and left twisted. The dirty pillowcase was also left twisted around her neck. Bundy again confessed to this murder before his execution. May 6th of...
Strangulation is not a fun way to go.
It's not. And if you guys have noticed, these are like about monthly. We're talking about like March, and that was April 6th. So here's May 6th. He abducts Lynette Culver from her school playground in Pocatello, Idaho. She was 13. Bundy would not talk about this murder. June 28th.
I think part of it too is personally, and this is going to probably sound really gross, but I think it's all of when he gets the need, like he probably lets out a lot of steam. It's just like a couple when you're married or you have somebody that you're with, you have sex and then like a few days go by, and you're just like, for him, it's dead bodies.
Yeah.
He rapes the corpses.
Ugh.
It's not just like he beats the fuck out of the face, and then he's like, oh,
Hello.
Having sex with a corpse. You're like my first girlfriend, actually.
We don't endorse corpse fucking, just so you know.
But we understand it.
Right.
So May
Me
6th
too.
of 75, he abducts Lynette Cole. Nope, sorry, I already did that one. June 28th of 1975, he abducts Susan Curtis from the campus of BYU while she was attending a youth conference. She was 15. July 1st, 1975, he abducts Shelley Robertson from Golden, Colorado. Shelley was given to hitchhiking for fun to other states. This was her hobby. When she didn't show up for work on July 1st, friends and family first thought she had gone off on a whim once more. She agreed with her boyfriend prior to her disappearance. Oh, sorry. She argued with her boyfriend prior to her disappearance. So I don't know if this is in the writings and it's making it a little more dramatic, but this seems to be very common. Like I was sort of mentioning earlier, that they were all kind of just having a bad day when Ted, and maybe that was just the Ted Bundy charm. He noticed they were having a bad day, and preyed on that.
So, well, you had a bad day. Can you help me move this couch into my VW bug?
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like,
Yeah, what size are you?
"You great big fat person."
Oh my
Well,
god.
she's good looking. I think that helped a lot.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But there were still women that were like, no.
Yeah.
They
I mean,
weren't-
they have that creep sensor.
Yeah.
It's very true. So since she is so apt to go out on these whims, the summer passed without a word, and they realized with dread that the 24-year-old had not gone away on her own. They learned that she had last been seen by friends on June 30th, and on July 1st, a policeman had noticed her at a gas station with a man in a beat-up old truck. On August 21st, a month and a half later, her nude body was found inside a mine by 2 mining students. The cause of death was impossible to determine because of the
Hey,
decomposition.
we're students. Is that normal? Are we going to find a lot of these here?
Is that extra credit? Is that going to be on the test?
Are we mining for dead nude female bodies? Because if we are we getting an A, right, Professor?
I also thought that was a weird... the mining students. I'm glad that you guys tuned in on that as well. So July 4th, we look back. He abducts Nancy Baird from Layton, Utah. She disappeared from a gas station where she worked. Part of her regular routing of work for this sort of establishment. She's had a lot of regular customers, and it is said that Ted may have been one of those regulars over a short period of time to gain some of that trust. I think that was just kind of a thing with her. With her job was the regulars and getting to know people, and Ted knew that and took advantage of that, and she disappeared. Her remains were never found. On August 16th, 1975, Ted is arrested for possession of burglary tools during a traffic stop in Salt Lake City.
Sir, what are those? Oh, those are my burglary tools. I burgle with those.
Question number 6. What tool was not in his trunk during this stop? So there are 4 options. One of these was not there. Was it A, a lockpick set, B, trash bags, C, handcuffs, or D, rope? One of these items was not in his burglary kit.
Now I'm going to deduce that he's used handcuffs before, which would make the rope useless, obsolete. So I'm going to go with rope.
There he says rope.
I'm gonna say the lockpick set, because if he's like convincing all these women to trust him, then why would he need a lockpick set?
Good idea.
And I feel like rope maybe to tie things.
We're not burglars,
We're not.
clearly,
No, I don't burgle. I flout.
but no burgling.
Burgle. So yeah, lockpick set.
All right.
If I know Ted, he needs rope for sure in his activities. He also needs handcuffs because he's just like all the assholes that use handcuffs.
And not in the good way.
Not in the good way. Not in the fluffy cuff way. So it's either A or B in my head. Lockpick set.
Trash
I don't
though.
see him. I think I'm gonna go with April and say lockpick set because I don't know any time that he ever. I mean, if the door was open, he went in. He's kind of a Richard Chase in that way. Like the door's open and available, he'll go in. If he's, there's so many beautiful women out there. I'm sure that's the way he thought, and I don't want to think like that. Ugh. Anyway, yeah.
Lockpick
I'm
set.
gonna go with A. Lockpick set.
All right. Ryan and April score 250 points apiece there because he did not indeed carry a lockpick set. And that is very true. Most of the stories you read said their door was never locked. It was a hub of activity there. Or for whatever reason at this time, their door wouldn't lock because it was broken. And those are all the times that Ted was a creature of opportunity. So Ryan's got 750 points. April 250. Larry 250. It is not too late for anyone.
Still in the game.
February 1978. He abducts Debbie Smith in Utah. March 1st, 1976. I told you they were coming in bunches. Question number 7. He's going to trial for the Duranch attack in which she escaped. He's going to be charged with aggravated kidnapping. What will be the verdict? This is pretty much
Yes or no?
Yeah. Is he guilty or not guilty? Aggravated kidnapping in the Duranch attack.
Yes. Guilty. That's what I'm going to say.
Oh boy. I'm going to say no, not guilty.
I'm going to go with guilty.
Larry and Ryan score points on this one. He was found guilty of aggravated kidnapping in the Duranch attack.
Doesn't help me, though.
Canceled it out there. Ryan 1,000. Larry 500. April 250 points. He is found guilty of aggravated kidnapping in the Duranch attack on April 1st, 1976. Debbie Smith's body is found at a Salt Lake International Airport. So that's 2 months later.
It was carry-on.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Stuffed in the overhead, man.
Another Bundy. June 30th, 1976. He is sentenced to 1 to 15 years in prison for the Duranch attack. On June 7th, 1977, he escapes from Picton County, Colorado, while preparing for trial in the Campbell murder. Question number 8. How did he escape? Was it A, digs out, B, over a fence, C, jumped out a window, or D, in a laundry truck?
C, jumped out a window.
C, jumped out a window.
I mean, judging by Ryan's face, I'm going to go with... He had such a sure look on his face. I'm going with C.
He knew it was jumped out a window before I even read the options. The answer is C, jumped out a window.
He actually twisted his ankle when
Right.
he did that.
Yes. So he found he found a loophole and knew that if he was indeed representing himself, like Ryan said earlier, he would have access to the library, which was on the second floor of the jail. But the library had windows that did open. So he jumped from the second floor window. So that's 250 points for all of you. Good idea. Ryan, bad poker face. Bad poker face.
Don't play poker. Not anymore.
No.
Oh, I know the answer. I mean, I don't.
So just 6 days later, he is apprehended in Aspen, Colorado. On December 30th, 1977, he escapes from the Garfield County Jail in Colorado and flees to Tallahassee, Florida.
This guy is good at everything.
Yeah, he's got it all. He's got it all. January 14th, 1978. This is the one day where this is the Berserker Day, January 14th, 1978. Karen Chandler had gone home and cooked dinner for her family, then returned before midnight to work on a sewing project. She went to bed a little after that, and the house had been quiet and deserted that evening. And when several different sorority sisters returned, a chain of events happened to lead them to realize an intruder had been among them. One girl saw Bundy running from the building as she entered, while another heard strange thumping sounds. They went to alert the house mother, and as she hurried down the hall, Karen staggered into the hall, blood streaming down her face, delirious and stumbling. She had suffered from broken teeth, jaw, and skull fractures, cuts, and one crushed finger. On the very same day in the very same house, Kathy Keener went to a wedding with her fiancé, then went to a dinner with her friends, and like her roommate Karen Chandler, she was in bed by midnight. After Karen's horrifying appearance, the house mother hurried into the room to find Kathy sitting in bed, holding her head in her hands as blood gushed from her wounds. She had lacerations and puncture wounds on her face, broken teeth, and her jaw was broken in 3 places, and she had a whiplash injury to her neck. Later, she would have a pin put in her jaw, and all her teeth were permanently loosened. She had no memory of the attack because she had been asleep and rendered unconscious by the first blow.
God.
Right.
Kidding.
Later, he enters the Chi Omega sorority house in Tallahassee, killing Lisa Levy. Her right nipple had been almost bitten off, and her left collarbone was broken, and she had been strangled. She was also sexually assaulted, and there was a double bite mark on her left buttock.
For biting off a nipple.
Right. There was also 2 bite marks on her left buttock, which would help identify and send Ted Bundy. It's going to get him a guilty conviction. It's one of the biggest pieces of evidence they have. They also find Margaret Bowman with a nylon stocking pulled so tightly around her neck that it was nearly broken. Her skull was so smashed that it was impossible to tell her injuries apart, and the coroner's opinion was that both girls were unconscious from the blows themselves.
What?
Thank God.
This guy is Satan. I want to say about this killing spree too. He had that jail time and then he escaped. It's funny because I think he went to Chicago briefly and saw a ball game or something. Like, it was weird. Like, he got out and he's like,
Please say it's not a Cubs game.
No, he saw some sporting
It sounds
event.
like a White Sox fans type of action.
He saw some sporting event and he was like, yeah. And then he went to Florida, like, yeah, I can go to Florida. I can start over. I could become Mickey Mouse if I want to. And then I think, like, slowly yet surely, he's like, wait, my purpose in life is to bash people's heads into the jelly.
That was one of the things that the last documentary I watched today was talking about, how he thought he would just go there and sort of disappear into obscurity. He would get some type of small job that wasn't in the public eye, and
then look what happened.
Right.
As soon as he tried to disappear to obscurity, he creates, like, basically, in serial killer worship, I would say, like, the Mona Lisa or the fucking
moaning Lisa.
Yeah,
man.
like, he just goes on a fucking tirade, and if he would have stayed in jail, this would have never happened. But he kills so many people in a very short amount of time.
Right, and even later that night, he also attacks Cheryl Thomas in her house nearby the sorority house, seriously injuring her. She had roommates that woke up to a thumping sound. They weren't sure what it was, but they felt uneasy about it. One of the roommates called her boyfriend and asked what they should do. He said if they're worried to call the cops. So they did that, and then they screamed out, like, if there's someone up there, we called the cops. And then all of a sudden the thumping stops, and Ted runs out of the house. Cheryl was seriously injured but not killed. He had just hammered at her face. Her roommates probably saved her life. So
he looks like a hairy weirdo at this time. He's got, like, kind of a unibrow happening. His clothes probably smell like
he's kind of been homeless, walking up and down the trail behind all the sorority houses that he used to kind of choose the one he's been kind of living on the lam. If you guys don't mind, we'll take a little break here, and we'll be right back with episode 41. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 41 of the Serial Chillers podcast. We tried to get Greg. We couldn't make it happen. We're going to hit it with this theme in his honor. Greg, we wish you were here, but you are not. Therefore,
we miss you, Greg.
Rest in peace, Greg.
So we are very close to the end here.
Feet first.
Yes.
Long way to go.
January 14th was the Berserker Day. He's a lot of attacks this day. February 9th of the same year, he abducts Kimberly Ann Leach from her school in Lake City, Florida. Kimberly Ann Leach is only 12 years old.
Oh, for fuck's sakes. dude.
February 15th, 6 days later, he is arrested driving a stolen VW in Pensacola, Florida. We all know how much Ted loves these VWs, that even when he escapes from prison and has his choice of vehicles to steal.
Well, you can put the body in the front trunk.
So on April 12th, 1979, Kimberly Leach's body is found in Suwannee State Park in Florida. July 27th, from his VW arrest, he is indicted for the murders of Levy and Bowman. That's from the Chi Omega house. And he is also indicted 4 days later for the Leach murder, the 12-year-old. So these are the three that he will end up being convicted with.
Good.
July 23rd, he is found guilty of the murders of Levy and Bowman. And July 31st of 79, he is sentenced to death for the murders of Levy and Bowman. January 7th, 1980, the trial begins for the Leach murder. And February 6th, 1980, he is found guilty of the Leach murder. Now there's no video of it because I don't think they were even filming court trials back then. But there is a
jury they were wrong.
Right, exactly. There's a photo of Ted screaming, and this is a child murder that he had just been convicted of. And after they deliberated for a very short amount of time for a capital murder, it was something like 7 hours, and came out and said guilty. Tell the jury they're wrong. And I believe, I can't remember exactly. It may have been Anne who brought that picture to a lot of her like talks and showed it and said, this is when we really saw for the first time, like we saw past that shell Ted had always been able to, that facade he had always been put up. For a lot of people, that was the first time they had ever seen what Ted really was.
And now, during this trial, if I'm not mistaken, he actually got married, too.
Right.
He had a girl on the stand, and according to Florida law, if you ask a woman to marry you on the stand and she says yes, you're legally married.
Yes, as long as it was in front of a judge. And
Yep,
so
and he got conjugal visits, too.
he was...
the express lane of marriage.
Yes. And that was, I guess, his advantage of being his own lawyer at this point. So...
Yep.
Let's see here.
There's a little Bundy out there too because of that.
Oh, perfect. Well, hopefully if we would have heard something, it would have been already, and we haven't. So, whew. Okay. So let's see here. Lost my spot. Okay. So he is found guilty of the Leach murder. Tell the jury they're wrong. February 6th, that is. February 9th, he is sentenced to death for the Leach murder. A few years later in 1984, and I just found this out. I had a listener send me a thing. I want to give him a shout out. His name's Andrew Lassen.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yes, Andrew sent me, there's actually a book called The Riverman, Ted Bundy and I Hunt for the Green River Killer. So while the Green River Killer was out doing his thing, Ted Bundy sends a letter to the chief detective saying, I'd like to help you. I want to be a consultant in this case. And this chief detective takes Ted Bundy's advice in consulting. So they never meet face to face, but they write several letters back and forth. And Ted Bundy was a consultant on the Green River Killer case.
/ that would be Gary Ridgway.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, he's an asshole too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He preyed upon the supposed less dead. At least that's what people would dub them, because he would go after sex workers predominantly, and he actually has the highest kill count of any serial killer in the United States.
So he's the Babe Ruth of serial killers.
I guess
There it
if you
is.
want to give him that.
There it is.
He also had the lowest IQ of most serial killers. He was dumb as a box of rocks.
So he's more like the A-Rod of serial killers.
So on July 2nd, 1986, he obtains a stay of execution only 15 minutes before he is scheduled to die.
Wow.
Right. 4 months later, November 18th, 1986, he obtains a stay of execution only 7 hours before he is scheduled to die. Again, he does it. 3 years later, on almost the anniversary of this last day of execution, a final death warrant is issued. on January 24th, 1989. In the final hours of his life, he is interviewed by Reverend James Dobson. The Reverend seemed to steer a lot of the interview. Ryan actually answered this earlier, so it could be free points if you guys were paying attention. Question number 9. What did Ted blame for his murderous ways? Was it a mental disorder?
Says.
Was it a mental disorder, rock music, satanic possession, or pornography?
You make me go first? I guess that's fair. He's gonna be blaming that Satan
Satanic
guy.
possession.
I believe the correct answer is D. Porn.
Pornography.
Don't drag my porn into this.
He does indeed blame his entire kill spree, Larry, on hardcore pornography that he said he got into at a very young age.
Put that away.
Sorry.
It is only an audio medium. It's okay. So, this interview is bizarre. You can watch it in full on YouTube. It's preposterous how hours before his death, how pompous he is.
Very.
Yeah. So it looks like Ryan has won this. There is one more question, but what the great thing is about parting gift for you two that did not win is that Ryan did not win anything.
Oh,
So
Good.
Yeah, it's sort of whose line is it anyway in that. We keep score, but I mean at the end I got nothing for you.
Points mean nothing.
the joy of your company is enough, sir.
That's true.
Wonderful.
Being here is a gift.
Indeed.
So, question 10 in that. What fashion is Ted executed? It's a famous photo of this, so that's a dead giveaway, but I don't have multiple choice. There's not a whole lot of options for this.
There's a Weekly World News photo of him, actually.
He was bad boy.
No. Larry, what do you think? How was he executed?
Lethal injection.
Yeah, probably lethal injection. I would like to think that someone bashed his face in with a crowbar because I think that's only fair, but
Wouldn't it be nice? Well,
and I hope someone bit off his nipple.
On-
Shot
on-
right in the mouth. Here,
He
taste
choked-
your nip.
He choked.
at 7:16 a.m. on January 24th, 1989,
I didn't get to say
Ted Bundy was killed by
electric chair.
the electric chair.
Of course.
Yes. Though the famous picture is he's got a shaved head and he's just got a good little ring around the top. And it's pretty gnarly. One of my favorite parts of the documentary, and I see this a lot in these serial killer documentaries, is that as he's being carted away from being killed in the hearse, they're driving away. There are hundreds upon hundreds of people just going, yeah, and cheering, and everybody's there celebrating the death of Bundy. So it's kind of a
Could be a holiday.
a good rah
right?
moment. So that's really all that I brought, and then we sort of talked about it a little bit, but this would be a 4-hour episode if we talked about how Ted got into politics and his work at the suicide hotline and all of his other side quests he had. I will not. We are finished.
Yes.
That's April.
Ted Bundy.
Yeah, exactly. That's Ted Bundy. Everybody. April and Larry. I like if you guys would like to throw out your other podcasts as well. I'm.
Sure. If you enjoy baseball history, check out EFIS Podcast at efispodcast.net.
Shazam!
And of course, if you like wrestling history, you should check out the Potty Slam podcast. We are a wrestling historical podcast you can find on Facebook and Twitter and Podomatic.
Yes.
Oh,
Well-
and lastly, sorry.
Oh no, please.
The Off Tempo podcast that I do with my husband Josh, who is also on conspiracy therapy, but could not be here tonight because someone has to be the parent in our house.
We miss you, Josh.
You can find us also on Facebook and on Podbean.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here. I know it's 3 hours later than where it is here, and I'm tired. So I appreciate you guys staying late for me. Congratulations, Ryan, on your victory. Everybody, make sure you're listening to Conspiracy Therapy. I appreciate it, you guys. Anything else you want to throw out there at the end here?
Well, I really just want to say that we appreciate being able to come on your show, man. And this is something that me specifically, definitely, this is something that I love. And I really love what you're doing. And you, as a fan of serial killer lore, like, you really actually turned me on to some things, especially with this guy who's such a monster. I mean, realistically, we went outside for our break and had a smoke break, and it, like, the whole time I was just like, God, I just wish I could bash his head in.
The passion
I
is real.
appreciate that, because these guys are monsters. They deserve to be ridiculed. And I hope in the future we can find a way to just kind of like eliminate this type of rage and hate and discontent, and just come together and enjoy a good podcast.
That's beautiful, Ryan. That was beautiful.
Well said.
Well, let's end it on that then. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, obviously, Ryan, April, and Larry. We miss you, Josh. Listen to Conspiracy Therapy Podcast. And thank you for listening to episode 41 of the Serial Chillers Podcast. All right, you guys. Again, that was episode 41 of the Serial Chillers Podcast. Thank you for sticking in there with us. I really enjoyed that episode. Again, you know, I'm sorry I didn't bring every detail of Ted Bundy, and it was really hard to decide which I was going to bring and which I was going to leave out. There are millions of documentaries and hundreds of podcast episodes that are going to tell you all about exactly what I did, so we had to kind of pick and choose. I'm sorry if I left out some of your favorite Ted Bundy tidbits. So, congratulations to Ryan on his victory. You guys definitely get out there and listen to Conspiracy Therapy. That is a great show. These guys make me laugh every time I listen to it. And there's actually some really great information in there too. And Ryan, Zanzizi BBB. Thank you guys again for coming on. Amazing to have you guys. Big fan. So it was really cool to have you on as well. So thank you guys all so much for listening. All the sources are going to go up on the website, serialchillerspodcast.com. If you guys want to reach out in any way, get a hold of us, tell us how much you love the show, how much you hated the show, how much you want to add to the show, what you take away from it, anything, reach out to us. You can send an email at serialchillerspodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Serial Chillers Podcast. Same goes for Instagram at Serial Chillers Podcast. Twitter is at Chillers Podcast. And of course, like I said before, serialchillerspodcast.com will have your most recent episode and sources for the episode. You can always give a little bit to the show at patreon.com/serialchillerspodcast. You guys know how that works by now, and I do greatly appreciate. There was some great growth on the Patreon in the month of March, and I can't tell you how thankful I am for that. So you can pick up your merch at serialchillerspodcast.threadless.com. There's t-shirts, there's mugs, there's notebooks, anything that may suit your fancy. The intro for today's episode, as always, was put together by co-host Greg. The outro was by Panic Club. You can find more from Panic Club at soundcloud.com. That's right, soundcloud.com. soundcloud.com/panic, PANICCLVBXO. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Episode 41 is a wrap. And remember, don't talk to strangers.